Hi, good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you. A warm welcome to CIMICON. We are a bit earlier because we were supposed to come at 10 o'clock. So we're a bit earlier. So lovely to see you and so great to be here. We've been coming here since 2018, supporting, and my name is Rafaat Rahmani. I'm from Lifescience Dynamics. And today we're going to talk about how we can leverage CI and market access to deliver a holistic picture of a market challenge to get a drug to the market and to understand the competition. And I will be co-presenting this talk with my colleague Navin, who is sitting here. And the title for talk today is leveraging CI to shape your market access strategy. And we will present two case studies. So without a further ado, so we have a booth here and stand. Please come and meet us. So our team is sitting here is Ivo and Jay and Vin and Navin. So we are here, and please come meet us. We are also launching a new tool here. It's called IntelliCentral, and the first dashboard is breast cancer. So if you want to have a demo of how the IntelliCentral works and please come and visit our booth, and we'll be happy to walk you through the booth on our booth, the IntelliCentral. And in case today we are just demoing breast cancer, but if you are interested in different indication, please talk to Vin here, and we'll be happy to talk about that as well. So once again, thank you so much for coming here, and let's get started. So the agenda is very straightforward today. We'll introduce our first hybrid CI and market access project. And it's important to give some context. I'll give you some context on that, and objectives of the CI and market access, and to explain what is market access is, because the market access, you do not go to the university to study market access. It's not like law degree or engineering degree or medicine degree that you go to school and university you get a engineering degree. You do not go to university to get a market access degree. So a market access means a lot to different people in a different context. So we will explain that, and how can CI enable market access? And CI is competitive intelligence, but how it can give you the full holistic picture of the marketplace. And then we'll talk about how the AI is coming. Even our tool that we are doing the demonstration is in AI enabled, and everywhere AI is everywhere. So we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to evolve with that. And the framework, and we will close with the framework to present. So our first market access and CI project is set up in 2008 and 9. So how many people in here remember 2008 and 9? Few. So it was a huge financial crisis, and many of companies' stock market was down, and was really, especially in the service industry such as ourselves, there was a bloodbath. So it was financial crisis everywhere, and of course, because we are in Germany, Germany bailed out all the big countries: Portugal, Italy, Spain, and Greece. So you can see it was a bloodbath all the way. So one of the challenges we faced, so I started my firm in 2004, and we grew nicely. So first 8 months we didn't have no business. Then we started getting business from 2005, 6, 7 growth, and then 8 came, and boom. So 2009 we were almost on the verge of closing Lifescience Dynamics and saying bye-bye, because I only had 75 pounds, which is about 100 euros or something in the account. We didn't have money to buy the food. I had a family, 3 children. We were basically, the bailiffs were coming to take things from the bailiffs. I don't know what, people who collect the debt was trying to come and take my car, my computer. It was really, really horrific situation. And then comes one of my friends had a RFP. And how many of you remember invention is mother of necessity is mother of invention? So my back was on the back, and I thought we have to come something new. So we had this RFP, and the RFP was to study a market access strategy for an EPO replacing drug. It was a IV iron drug, and we had to study in 8 European market, and it was EU4, UK, Australia, and all, and it was in chronic kidney disease. And I've been thinking that we got to win this because we are literally about to shut down the shop. And I thought and thought. I came up with the idea, why not we combine CI and market access? Because we are doing market access and CI. And so initial secondary landscape, funding flow, tendering process. So these were some of the questions they wanted to understand. What does the winning tender look like? What is the funding flow like? And how we can position. And so what I did in that was there was only me and one other employee. So there was 2 people at that time in the company. So when you say we said we will do the classic market access, interview the payers, but also use competitive intelligence to understand the contracting. And combining that, we were able to give the full company country-specific picture of the both tendering process, funding flow, the calendar, and all that, and to understand how the policymakers were making decisions, what were their unmet needs, what were their pain points, and because if you just talk to market access payers, you get one side of the story. But if you also talk to the purchasers and contract negotiation, and you have another side of the story. This product was going through the contract and tendering. It wasn't one of those innovative projects. So that just gives you an example how you can, how this all came about and how you can leverage CI to enhance market access. With that, I'll pass to Navin. At the end of the we will have our questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafaat. So let me just start by asking you all a question. How many of you are here and work in CI only? How many? Are you all CI only? Anybody in market access and pricing? Okay, handful. That's interesting and good to know. So if you're in market access, anybody in global roles, or are you all local, regional roles? Global, quite a few in global. That's great to know. All right, so hopefully this will resonate with you because what I'm about to tell you, my background, I worked in industry first with Merck Inc., not Merck, the German KGA, or the other one, E-Merck, for about 15 years, locally managing in the UK the market access and customer marketing team and sales teams. But then 15 years in GSK, in global and regional roles, bringing pipeline products into the market and supporting affiliates, all the local countries in all parts of the world. So my background is very, I guess, rich in understanding what market access pricing and HEOR is all about. But actually, and this is in the humblest way possible to our CI colleagues here, I never engaged with CI teams. And CI teams never came to tell me what they could offer me or add value to the sort of work that I needed to do. So another question to you from market access folks, do you engage and actually work with your CI colleagues in your companies? You do. Intensively, or is it through the marketing in an ad hoc way? Yeah. So this presentation, I just wanted to, again, share with you the opportunities that exist. And I think particularly for CI people here in different companies, what is it you could do with your market access colleagues? Because you can inevitably add great value to make sure that products that need support are actually done systematically and well. And if you didn't do it, then I think here's an opportunity, and I want to share some examples with you. So with that, pretty much CI and market access have the same sort of objectives. And if you look at, I don't need to tell the CI folks here what your key kicks. This is something that I've learned having joined Rafaat and the rest of the company in Lifescience Dynamics. The importance of CI and how intensively well they do their work, supporting, partnering with many, many companies across the world. All right. And if you look at market access, it is about, yes, when we talk about market access, and if you don't know this, we often think about hurdles, barriers. How do you get the product into the market quicker? by going across what we call the fourth hurdle, particularly in reimbursed market across Europe, but also the rest of the world. But the reality is it's actually more than that. And at the end of the day, market access, the definition I've always been trained to use, and often I use this when I train people in market access right across the world, is actually it's as simple as making sure that you can get the right drug to the right patient at the right time. Okay? Yes, part of that means it's about crossing barriers like the fourth hurdle, getting through NICE, getting through IQWiC here in Germany, or HEOR in France, or whichever, PBAC in Australia. And by the way, if you work with Australia, it's one of the most difficult and challenging countries. PBAC have a systematic way of what we call kicking the can down the road. Yeah, no matter how good your evidence is, they find a way to make sure that your drug will not get reimbursed until you submit more data, more evidence, or generate more evidence through real world, particularly data and evidence. It's one of the most difficult, challenging countries that I've worked with in terms of getting reimbursement, and particularly in diseases, specialty diseases and cancer, where we try and bring products to market for good reasons, so patients have access to good enough drugs that have generate good enough evidence. But if you look at some of the circle outside, this is where market access teams have to work with and integrate many different functions. So it's not a, sometimes I often, one of the things I've learned often when people don't understand market access, it's a division, they'll sort things out. But actually, market access, as you know, don't work on their own, right? They have to integratedly work with many other functions to make sure you have the best possible proposition to any part of the world you want to take the product to, right? Agreed? AMA people, right? So it is not a standalone function where you just produce a dossier and hopefully you just throw it to the affiliates and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. The reality is doing your job as a market access person means systematically understanding the nature of the different, reimbursement systems. And if you go right across the continuum, out-of-pocket countries, right across Asia and the Middle East and LATAM particularly, where understanding the nature of the healthcare systems is just as important as trying to be an expert in understanding reimbursement bodies like NICE or IQWiC, et cetera. Okay? Actually, reimbursement bodies like IQWiC, NICE, they have a methodology. You know what you need to do to get it through across the fourth hurdle, right? You need to, like NICE, you need to go over the 20,000 QALY threshold. If you've got an evidence package for a product that doesn't get through that, you know pretty well it's going to get rejected. Right? Or a specialty drug, you may actually have a bit more in terms of QALY. If you didn't know that, you can. So the idea is knowing the methodology means you know what the hurdle is going to be, so you've got to make sure you generate the right evidence. All right, so that said, the squiggly lines, it's a web of massive difficulties. So a market access person, those of you who work in it, you'll understand this. It's not only internally integrating with the different functions, but also understanding, as I alluded to earlier, the different healthcare systems nuances that you need to understand. Even in Europe, right? Each of the countries, now we have JCA, Joint Clinical Assessment. You know that? Yeah? Okay, a lot of nodding heads. If you didn't, then come and see us at our stand, and we can go through that. And I've got a presentation on that as well. So that kicked off January this year, and I think we're on the 8th or 9th drug that is going through that process. The first one is nearly out in terms of that assessment, but even the early experiences of JCA, Joint Clinical Assessment, is that different systems, healthcare systems, is going to have challenges when the assessment comes out about how they're going to implement all of that in terms of the requirements of their healthcare system requirements. All right, so it's not that straightforward yet. It's early days, and we'll see what that means. So although it's unified, the reality is each healthcare system, because of the subtle nuances and differences, they still need to implement their own requirements of how that drug is to be put through, finally to be able to be accessible to patients. All right, that squiggly line therefore represents the lot of other systems and processes that a market access person would need to play through to make sure that the drug is able to counter, to make the best proposition to that system. All right. So really, the point of this talk is how does CI therefore enable better market access? Well, if you look at the key goals in CI and market access, actually there's amongst many other things, here are the 2 or 3 main things that I wanted to highlight. Okay, it's really understanding, yes, you always need to know. When I was trained at Merck, Merck had what's called, anybody here from Merck, by the way, before I say something which is untoward? Nobody from Merck? I mean, I think they still use it in slight variation, and this is going back nearly 25 years with Merck. They've got the Merck marketing principles. And principle number 2 was about understand your competition, right? And outmaneuver your competition, because that's one of the key requirements. So CI is all about really competitive intelligence. So understanding there means you know what the gaps are and therefore what you need to do to plug the gap so you can be ahead and you can outmaneuver the competition. That's the value add of CI particularly. But all of that is to make sure that outmaneuver comes in one part, but you need to therefore understand, in having done that, is how do you then make sure your product adds value to the patient primarily, but also to the healthcare system. And that's where a combination of that intelligence through CI, and I'll tell you some things in the next few slides about the key areas that can add the value for market access. Right. So if you look at the right-hand side here, market access, these are some of them. Again, it's not exhaustive. Requirements. So again, principle number 1 in marketing principles that I learned was also early on, what are the payer requirements? So in my last company, one of the key things that I did when I first joined with a number of my colleagues was to inculcate an understanding within R&D that the regulatory file, getting a license is important, but actually the reimbursable file, getting it reimbursed by your healthcare system is equally important. So one of the things we managed to do was convince the CEO and the R&D organizations to make sure that the R&D teams were also reimbursed, not only on getting a license, clinical data to make sure it is safe, efficacious, and the quality is good, but actually it will be reimbursed because they have generated the right data set or evidence. So early understanding of the requirements for all these different types of healthcare systems I just mentioned earlier on is going to be vitally important, whether it's Australia, whether it's Japan, US, although it's very fragmented, with the ISO team there also having a slight influence now what happens. It's going to be interesting if US, unlikely, but likely to also go down the requirement of being a reimbursed market. Unlikely, but it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But in, LATAM, Brazil, Mexico, they have hybrid systems. They have reimbursement requirements with HTA bodies, and the same in the Middle East. It's becoming very formidable in the Middle East with Saudi, UAE taking a stance in requiring the HTA evidence requirements. So if you look at all the list of things here on the right, these are the sort of things that a market access person working with colleagues in the health economics, HEOR team, pharmacoeconomics, et cetera, to make sure you generate early on the understanding of what's required, but then making sure you work with the clinical development teams to generate the right evidence early on. So certainly in the major markets. Then it's the global person's, as you know, role to make sure you work at a regional or local level to generate the local data required. Because it cannot, the global teams, as you know, will not be able to do the requirements needed for every type of market, 160 markets, things. So what they normally do, typically, and certainly my experience with Merck and GSK, is that you would typically generate for the main 8 to 10 markets. The EU4, UK, US, Japan, Australia, Canada, for instance, right? And the rest, making sure you can tweak a little bit. So as long as you get 80, 70% right, then regionally you make sure that you can work on the rest to generate that, okay? Now, if you look at CI on the left-hand side, this is where your expertise and the type of work you do comes into play to be able to add value to market access requirements, right? Early insights into competition, yes, but also you have great avenue into understanding the evidence generation requirements, stakeholders, who they are, right? Whether it's KOLs, key opinion leaders, or external experts, or patient groups, advocacy groups, PAGs, as you know them, right? And you do all of this stuff extremely well, early pipeline assessments. So what the point is, if you do all of that, it is actually tweaking a little bit to say, what is it that actually market access teams need on the right-hand side that can be generated in addition to what you do just for competitive intelligence, that will enhance the strategy for market access, which they may not have had before. Because when I worked at GSK at a global level, particularly in specialty oncology and respiratory, see, I did all of this stuff on my own because nobody told me or trained me. As Rafaat mentioned earlier, there isn't a book that tells you how to play. There isn't a playbook saying these are the things you need to do to be able to do it. You acquire that through years of experience. Some companies are going down the route of having little playbooks, the A to Z of how you play in market access, right? But not every company's got that. And by the way, I did generate a playbook in GSK, so hopefully they're still using it, having left there in 2022. Right, so, and the idea, remember the squiggly line in a couple of slides or a few slides before, the idea is if you do this competitive intelligence right in working with market access people, and all the squiggly things that come to play, you know, that this thing here represents, you can actually systematically, because you can tick almost like a checklist to say we know exactly what needs to be done with that enhanced synergy between CI and market access to be able to play right. One of the things that I've learned over the years or decades in market access is getting it right first time is critically important. Because if you delay, and if you don't get it right with the right type of evidence, for instance, of getting a product through IQWiC or through NICE in the UK or PBAC in Australia, you remember what I said about kicking the can down the road? PBAC will kick it down and you delay, and the next time could be 6 months or a year later that you can actually submit again. So you've lost the opportunity, revenue, sales for a year. So that's why I always say, you know, all of those insights early on that you can generate from CI is going to add value to the extent that actually you can get it right first time. So if you do, then you know the product is in the market earlier than you would ideally, you know, sometimes miss the trick. Okay? So what is the evidence that actually CI and market access working together? Here's a case example. One of the work before my time that Rafaat and team actually worked together. It's a CNS, I won't mention the disease therapy area or the company, but it's a neurodegenerative disease where the treatment possible was just palliative, and you know, people, these patients usually died before their early young age. So anybody discovering a new therapy, disease-modifying therapy, for instance, would have an advantage. What CI, if you look at the middle row there, could generated was having partnered with this company, early insights into understanding what the competition is doing, and most of the competition were working in curing palliative types of symptoms, cure, et cetera, type of drugs. And nobody was actually developing in the pipeline disease, DMTs, disease-modifying therapies. So this company, going down the route of developing a DMT, clearly was going to be an advantage. But understanding what are the payer requirements, who are the advocacy groups, who are the KOLs, was going to be critically important. And that's what CI brought into the mix. And having done that, in the clinical development plan, a contribution into the market access requirements for the key markets, a clear understanding that payers were willing to pay a premium price for this drug. If you could show the evidence that actually it did modify the disease, would have been an advantage at a higher price. And also identifying the key stakeholders, KOLs or external experts, and PAGs, patient advocacy groups, were clearly identified. They had a plan to be able to make sure that you could work together and partner with these institutions and these groups to be able to contribute to a better market access and getting it right first time. So when they brought the product into the market, actually they got it right first time in markets at a premium price. So that is a clear example of how it could be done and the advantage thereof. Okay. That said, I cannot not have a slide on AI. You know, when this burst into the market in December 2022, with first GPT, ChatGPT, you know, it's been fascinating. And one of the things we're doing in Life Science Dynamics, and I think, Vin, if you're interested in the tool we have, IntelliCentral, using AI, in terms of, and yes, it's in one therapy area currently, but the intention is to expand into multiple indications in cancer and other disease areas. Please come to the stand and have a look at it. But AI is, I think, going to be a paradigm shift in how this is going to be a contribution in market access, or CI plus market access. And I wanted to just share some of the possibilities. And if, and there's a little questionnaire here at the end. Hopefully you'll be, those of you particularly in market access, I would like to hear your views, certainly when we have a Q&A session, or please come to the stand, and I've got a 4-question survey that I'd like you to please contribute into, because we need to understand, actually there isn't much out there in the literature. There's a paper we wrote earlier in the year, and very little is known or in the literature about any companies working in AI, in market access. A lot of companies, as you know, are doing many, many things in drug discovery development, right? And every day I know I get alerts saying, oh, yeah, and just saw one this morning about antibiotics, clearly an AI tool from MIT, being able to identify a wonderful sort of requirements for gut enzymes to be able to counter a particular type of microbe. So those things expedite, obviously, drug discovery and development, and it's wonderful. That means we can shift through billions of molecules to be able to identify a key molecule that can be developed into a drug much quicker, 3-4 years in advance, much quicker. And that's great. But actually, when we come to commercializing a product, i.e. market access, very little is being done. And my proposition here, and this is the work we are doing continuously at Life Science Dynamics, is to track this and actually work with AI companies to see how we can offer tools and value propositions to companies, and come and see me after in the break, and we can discuss how. But here are some of the opportunities that I believe exist. But the boxes at the top are the areas of requirements in market access and pricing and HEOR. And the middle boxes are saying using generative AI tools, what can be done for quicker reimbursement, understanding pricing. Companies, used to spend a lot of work doing pricing research with payers, right? I believe there are tools now already available, or you can partner with companies that can actually do this more efficiently, cheaper, quicker. Rather than months of doing payer research, these tools added on with that type of research can cut down cost, time, and effort. And that is a good thing overall. We're talking about efficiency here, and it matters of getting insight much quicker, much earlier. Okay, so there is a gap. And in part of our research, and there's a paper that we wrote earlier in the year, only about 4 months ago. So there are a number of companies already developing AI tools that exist. By the way, you have access to these slides, so you don't need to take pictures. You can have access to this. If you come to a stand, give us your details. You'll gladly have these slides. It's not a problem. But there is one company that we are already discussing with, Okra, the box number 2, that already have an AI tool. And their work shifting through millions of documents, looking at HTA outputs, apparently accurately predicted 90% of the time what the HTA output could be by using this AI tool. So that sort of insight is already available. What's not available is obviously they haven't done anything with it or partnered with, and they're looking for partners. And we have an NDA with them to work together to offer to customers. Okay, so already exists, but actually nothing in the literature about what market access is doing currently. So here's the proposition for you. I believe there is an opportunity, you market access folks and your CI teams working together. It's a framework step by step, what you could possibly use. I always like frameworks to tell me how to do it, 30 seconds. And if you can do that, then I think it's fantastic. All right. Again, this framework is available to you. So thank you for that. With that, can I have 2 minutes for people to just do a Mentimeter? Yes?
I have to ask yeah.
Well, we're supposed to be on at 10 o'clock, right? Would you mind?
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So have you got your phones out, please? I want you to just see if you could do this for me. Here's the Mentimeter. If you could just, obviously, QR code scan it. Oh. Is not available? Can someone? It's plugged in? Plug it out, plug it in. I like that. It's like help desk. Whenever I call help desk, say, my computer doesn't work. He said, plug it out, switch it off, switch it on. You always get that, right? No? So please come to our stand. There is a 4-question survey I'd like you to participate in. And I think it'll be very helpful because it will produce another subsequent paper. Actually, if you are working with AI companies or looking at how AI can add value to some of the work you do, then I would love to know. Because as I say, there isn't much in the literature so far. It doesn't mean they don't exist. So part of the survey we're generating is just that. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So here's the, and hopefully this will work. You're all set, it says. Have you got it all? We're good? Well, okay. Good. You can see the results. Thank you. All done? Excellent. Okay. Fascinating. Very good. So those of you not on radar, please come and talk to us. It should be in your radar. I firmly believe, having grown up in the, when internet first launched in the 90s and started using those little computers in the 70s, I believe this is a paradigm shift with AI and the opportunities they present in every aspect of work we do or live. And don't miss this, because I think it's going to transform. Within 2 to 5 years, the world we live in is going to be completely different, particularly in healthcare and with AI in CI and market access. Okay, with that, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I know we've run out of time. Please come and see us in our stand. Thank you.